OpEx saving, OpEx for the traditional way equals A. If you go to a validated design architecture, as some of our colleagues have been talking about, you can maybe reduce that by half. Again, this is based on only one data point of a customer in Spain, but just for an example. But what we're really trying to look at is the pre-provisioning of application-centric infrastructure design. So we're trying to go even further back with cloud computing. So we're not only are we giving you the validated designs, or this is what I've found has really worked on building a business case. Have a validated design, sure, but try and move that line back even further to the point where you can populate a catalog, you can populate a database, which simply the user can go in and select what they want. So we're industrializing the process, and as a result of that, we have all those fantastic qualitative benefits, but we're really looking for something quantitative. For me, with this particular customer in the data center, we looked at a 70% reduction in the OpEx by moving from automation and validated design to self-service, using and leveraging the ethos of automation and validated design, but this was the key thing for us. It was moving that to a self-service capability. So if vendors can't come and show you the numbers based around this kind of calculation and prove it in your data center, then why would you believe that making that move to the cloud is going to be economically viable for you? So 8 in 1 with this particular customer, 3 against 1. So $3 in management for every $1. I wish I could say it was less than $1, but I can't. So with other customers that will be greater, and with others it will be less. But the important thing as well, so that's just touching on OpEx. We have limited time, so I want to give you one more example of CapEx. So changing the way, this is the Cisco view, as well as many of the other vendors as well. So changing the way the customers actually consume the compute capacity. So not only can we help reduce that provision time, but the actual consuming of the capacity. So plenty of people have mentioned actually through this last session that in the past, because it was so time-consuming to provision compute capacity with all the ancillary stages and the stages I showed you on that previous slide, you had to provision for the peaks. This slide just shows quite simply the number of VMs on the left-hand side, time and application peaks and troughs, that big red line there. So typically what we used to see, or still do in many customers, if they haven't moved to this cloud on-demand utility-based, is that you have to pre-procure that capacity for the peaks. No other way around it, because you don't have the time to be able to burst up and burst down, move a particular application load from chassis 2, blade 3, to chassis 5, blade 4. You have no way to do that. You have no way to move up the stack if you don't have automation, orchestration, and ultimately self-service. So in tomorrow's world, and the new 2B process that we've been testing and piloting, and this is one of the biggest savings that I found in my business cases, writing for the different customers, the 12 different opportunities I've personally worked on, was that we were able to just provision the compute units as required, up and down, re-provisioning, decommissioning capacity as required. What did that mean? Quite simply, they didn't have to buy the big red, it's not even red on there, but it's red on my slide, the big box in the back there for the peaks. So you don't have to procure for the peak, you procure for the medium. So big savings around that. Of course, it depends on your application load. It depends on all these things. But this is two just simple examples from OpEx and CapEx point of view that I've really noticed has worked. So as is, 22%, one of our other colleagues said that it was 15 to 20%, 22% for this particular customer utilization, and we moved to 60% utilization without any degradation of applications. So if this is your typical reference model lifecycle, what we're really trying to do is simply with this, at each stage, is save the dollars. And if, again, back to the point, if vendors can't come in and put a dollar amount to each one of these steps, then I don't think it's viable for anybody to make a business decision around moving to cloud, just in my very humble opinion. So one quick example of where we did this in the Spanish telco that I particularly worked on last year. So these guys wanted to look at a new SharePoint application running on a Windows environment, but of course running on a virtual cluster. So the user came in to the portal. The portal that we'd set up with the orchestration technology took that feed into an automation technology. And for us, it doesn't matter what the automation or orchestration technology is. Do we leverage what you have, or do we have partners in this space that we can, also bring in and prime the contract? Absolutely both. But the important thing for me was the dollars that we could save at each one of these steps. Automation technology spins up the VMware cluster. Of course, VMware and vCenter itself, we're not going to reinvent the wheel of spinning up VMs. That does that quite perfectly. But the reason we go into an automation technology is for the application packaging piece. Typically, application packaging is a huge part, of course, of the time it takes to move through provisioning applications. The application and environmental variables are extremely important to take into consideration. So if we can package the application up, either in a proprietary, vendor-specific packaging technology, like of course Oracle and SAP come with that, but with many automation technologies that are out there, 2 or 3 of them that we have on our price list, we looked at how we package those applications earlier in the process. That means that the environmental variables that they're getting deployed into are not this single point of failure. Quite often with applications, each time you promote and demote through the pre-production environments into production, you have a problem with the environmental variables. So this was one of the real big business parts of the business case that we were able to write. It was Telefonica, actually, I can name the account. And what we were able to do is spin up that extra SharePoint server on the vSphere cluster and ensure that that was done with minimal time. So at each of these stages that we talk about here, and then of course going back into the user and closing the loop, notifying them that that was ready for usage, we reduced that, and I've got the numbers here. So the OpEx cost was reduced by 81%, the CapEx by 40%, because we looked at the frequency of those environments and how many times they needed to be reprovisioned, and therefore what the peak and the trough of the data and traffic was. And we were able to give them a very, very clear quantitative business case around how they could save on the infrastructure. I didn't see you there in the corner. So 40% on that, back to that example I showed you, and mean time to deploy the application, 75%. So add them in the mix. That paid for the infrastructure, the services of this solution that was primed, in this case by Cisco, but it doesn't matter who it is, that was primed, it paid for in 18 months. So, and then of course beyond that was their business case. So for me, I really just wanted to leave you with this slide to say, this is the kind of detail that vendors should be coming to the mat and showing you in your accounts. If they want you to buy their services, software, hardware, all those things, if you can't prove the numbers in your own data center, then there's something awry. Thank you.